Welcome back, students. We are continuing with the third theme, that is kinship, caste, and class. In this, we will be studying about social differences within and beyond the framework of caste. First point in this, the term caste, come to next line, refers to a set of hierarchically ordered social categories. So that means the caste system, it is in a kind of a ladder where there are one is on the top, then the other below that, and then other below, and so it continues. It's something like a ladder. Next point, the ideal order was laid down in the Dharma Sutras and the Dharma Shastras. Next point, Brahmanas ranked first, while groups as Shudras and untouchable at the very bottom of the social order. So in this hierarchical order, on top were the Brahmanas and at bottom were the Shudras and the untouchables. Positions within the order was supposedly determined by birth. So the position was on the basis of birth. Now coming to the next subtopic, the right occupation. First point, the Dharma Sutras and the Dharma Shastras contain rules about the ideal occupations of the four categories or varnas. So these Dharma Sutras and Dharma Shastras, they had details about the four varnas and the duties or the occupation or the work which had to be done by these four varnas. Next point, Brahmanas to study and teach the Vedas, perform sacrifices and get sacrifices performed, and give and receive gifts. These were the duties of the Brahmanas. Next in the order of the Varna system were the Kshatriyas. Next point, Kshatriyas were to engage in warfare, protect people, and administer justice, study the Vedas, get sacrifices performed, and make gifts. Kshatriyas are making gifts, whereas the Brahmanas are giving and receiving gifts. And these are the duties of the Kshatriyas. Next in the ladder is the Vaishyas. So next point, the last three occupations, making gifts, performing sacrifices, and studying the Vedas, these are also with the Vaishyas. The last three occupations were also assigned to the Vaishyas, who were in addition expected to engage in agriculture, pastoralism, and trade. So other than the last three duties of the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas were also into agriculture, grazing of animals, and even in trade activities. Next point, the fourth in the ladder, Shudras were assigned only one occupation, that of serving the three higher varnas. So Shudras had only one duty, one occupation, one work, and that was to provide service to the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas. Now coming next paragraph, circle this, enforcing these norms. So how were these norms, these rules which were written in the Dharma Shastras and Dharma Sutras were followed or made the people follow in the society? First point, the Varna order was of divine origin. What the Dharma Sutras and the Dharma Shastras defined, that this was by the Brahma itself, that from the mouth of the god the Brahmanas have come, and from the arms the Kshatriyas, and from the thighs the Vaishyas have originated, and from the feet the Shudras have originated. So by doing this, what is happening? The society accepts it because it is the order of the god. Next point, another way of following these norms were done, kings to ensure that these norms were followed within their kingdoms. It was the duty of the king that the four varnas occupation was followed by all the varnas according to their occupation. Next point, they attempted to pursue people that their status was determined by birth. What Brahmanas in the Dharma Sutras and the Dharma Shastras declared, that it was because of the birth that you are following these duties, and if you perform good activity in this birth, you will be born in a higher Varna system in the next birth. Now come to the next page. Non-Kshatriya kings. In this we'll try to find out that were all the kings Kshatriyas, or do we get to know about non-Kshatriya kings also? First point. According to the Shastras, only Kshatriyas could be kings. So the Dharma Shastras and the Dharma Sutras giving details of the rules that only Kshatriyas could become kings. Next point. The social background of the Mauryas has been hotly debated. The social background of the Mauryas is still unknown. There are different theories. Some declare them as Kshatriyas, some etc. Later Buddhist, next point, later Buddhist texts suggest they were Kshatriyas. Brahmana texts describe them as of being low origin. So different books are giving different social background of the Mauryas. Next point, the Shungas and the Kanvas, the immediate successors of the Mauryas, were Brahmanas. So even the Shungas and the Kanva dynasties, which became the rulers of the Magadha Empire after the decline of the Mauryan Empire, were Brahmanas. So this detail we are getting that they were, it is not compulsory that all the rules in the Shastras were being followed. We are getting details about non-Kshatriya kings. Next point, next paragraph, the Shakas who came from Central Asia were regarded as Malachachars, barbarian or outsiders by the Brahmanas. The Dharma Shastras and the Dharma Sutras are describing people who were not fit into these Varna systems as Malachas, and they are considering them Shakas as outsiders because they have come from other lands. Next point. The earliest inscription in Sanskrit describes how Rudradaman, the best known Shaka ruler, circa 2nd century CE, rebuilt Sudarshan Lake. So we are getting detail about a Shaka king. The name of the king is Rudradaman, and his inscription is the first inscription recorded in Sanskrit language. And it is giving details about a lake which was known as Sudarshan Lake, which was built by him, rebuilt by him, sorry. Next point. The best known ruler of the Satvana dynasty, Gautami Putra Sri Satakarni, claimed to be both a unique Brahmana, Eka Brahmana, and a destroyer of the pride of Kshatriya. So again we are getting details about a ruler of the Satvana dynasties who considered themselves as Brahmanas and who destroyed the prides of the Kshatriyas. So now we are getting details about the Mauryas, the Shungas, the Kanvas, even the Shakas, then later on Satvanas, who were non-Kshatriya kings. Next point. We're going to talk about this. Gautami Putra Sri Satakarni entered into a marriage alliance with the king of Rudradaman. So the Shakas and the Satvanas made a marriage alliance which was common that time between different kings. So we get details that it is not compulsory that the rules which were written in the Dharma Shastras and the Dharma Sutras were followed by all people. Now come to the next subtopic, that is Jatis and social mobility. In this topic, Jatis, how did Jatis emerge? Other than the Varna system, there was a Jati system which involved after the Varna system. So we'll study about what was the Jati system and how it made the society function. In Brahmanical theory, Jati like Varna was based on birth. So even Jati was based on birth. Once you are born in a specific Jati, you cannot change your Jati, as nobody could change the Varna also. Next point. The number of Varnas was fixed at 4. There was no restriction on the number of Jati. There were only 4 Varnas on which the Brahmanas were at top. After the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas. After the Kshatriyas, there were Vaishyas. And providing service to all these 3 were the Shudras. There were 4 Varnas only. But in Jatis, there were no restriction on the number of jatis. There could be many number of jatis. Next point, whenever Brahmanical authorities encountered new groups, come to this line, continue, which did not easily fit into the fourfold Varna system, they classified them as a jati. So other than the four Varnas, people who came from outside or developed new occupations coming into the fold of the Varna system, so they were classified as jatis. Next point, jatis which shared a common occupation or profession were sometimes organized into shrenis or guilds. Jatis performing the same occupation, they organized into associations such as the shrenis or the guilds, and these shrenis and guilds function together so that that occupation, that association would evolve and become a bigger association. Next point, stone inscription circa 5th century CE found in Mandsaur, Madhya Pradesh, record the history of a guild of silk weavers who originally lived in Lata, Gujarat, from where they migrated to Mandsaur, then known as Daspura. We get details out here as we are talking about that jatis. Once a person is born in a specific jati, he could not change his jati. But in this inscription found at Mandsaur in Madhya Pradesh, and this inscription dates back to the 5th century CE, we have information about a guild of silk weavers who were originally living at Lata in Gujarat, but once they migrated to Mandsaur, which is in Madhya Pradesh, they changed their occupation from silk weavers to a different occupation. So people, it was not that rules of the Dharam Shastras and the Sutras were followed everywhere. There were many exceptionals, such as this inscription giving us a detail about. Next point, come to this paragraph, third line. Although membership was based on shared craft specialization, some members adopted other occupations. So this point is trying to explain the earlier point that you could change your occupation depending on your facilities. Now come to the next point, that is beyond the four Varnas, integrations. So what was the situations after the four Varnas? Was there any other class also? We will discuss about this. First point, there were populations whose social practices were not influenced by Brahmanical ideas. So we get details about people who are not following the Brahmanical ideas, written norms or the rules written in the Dharam Shastras and the Dharam Sutras. Next point, in Sanskrit texts, there are often described as odd, uncivilized or even animal-like. So the people who are not following the Brahmanical ideas, they have been described as uncivilized or very odd or even animal-like. Next point, these included forest dwellers for whom hunting and gathering remained an important means of subsistence. So the people who were staying in the forests followed the occupation of hunting, gathering. Such people were discarded from the four Varnas. Next point, the Nishad, to which Eklavya is supposed to have belonged, are example of this. So in the Mahabharata, we get an example of Eklavya, and he belonged to these forest dwellers, and this class or that particular tribe was known as Nishad. Come to the next paragraph. Others, next point, others such as nomadic pastoralists who could not be easily accommodated within the framework. So other than this, there were other people such as nomadic pastoralists who were moving from one place to another. So they were also not part of the four Varnas. Next point, sometimes those who spoke non-Sanskrit languages were labeled as Malechas and looked down upon. So other than this, the people who were not able to speak Sanskrit language, they were described as Malechas or outsiders, and they were looked down upon in this society. Next point, there were also a sharing of ideas and beliefs between these people. So all these peoples who could not speak Sanskrit, who were nomadic pastoralists or who were forest dwellers, they were having the same ideas and beliefs which were not matching to the Brahmanical ideas. Now we come to beyond the four varnas, subordination and conflict. So these people who were not in these four varnas, how did they conflict with the people who were in the four varnas? First point, the Brahmanas considered some people outside the system by classifying certain social categories as untouchables. So the people who were outside these varnas, these four varnas, that is Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and the Shudras, other than these four varnas, other people came to be classified as untouchables. The performance of rituals was sacred and by extension pure. That means whatever these sacrifices, rituals were being performed, they were being performed by the people of pure, who is to consider themselves as pure. Next point, those who considered themselves pure avoided taking food from untouchables. So the people of the four varnas who considered themselves as pure, that is the Kshatriyas, the Brahmanas and the Vaishyas, they stopped taking food or any items from the untouchables. Next point, some activities were regarded as particularly polluting. So the other activities which these three varnas did not perform and was performed by the other people, and this was the activities were known as polluting, which were to serve the other varnas. Next point, those who performed such tasks designated as Chandalas were placed at the very bottom of the hierarchy. Now the Chandalas, this was the name given to the untouchables, and they were not fit into the four varnas. They were given the name Chandalas and they were at the bottom of the hierarchical order of the varna system. Their touch, next point, their touch and even seeing them was regarded as polluting. So the other varnas discarded these Chandalas and they did not want to touch them or see them. Next point, the Manu Smriti laid down the duties of the Chandalas. So a book which was part of the Dharma Shastras and the Dharma Sutras, which laid down the norms for the society to function, it laid down the duties of the Chandalas. So now what are the duties of the Chandalas? Very important in perspective of questions in the board. Many times questions have been asked on this. So what were the duties of the Chandalas? Next point, to live outside the village. Next duty, use discarded utensils. So they could only use the utensils which were thrown away by the other varnas. Wear clothes of the dead and ornament of iron. They were only allowed to wear the clothes of the dead which were thrown away and ornaments only of iron. They could not wear ornaments of silver, copper, gold, etc., which were expensive, only iron ornaments. They could not walk about in villages and cities at night. So after the sun has set, they could not walk in the villages and the cities. Next point, they had to dispose of the bodies of those who had no relatives and serve as executioners. So the people who died without having any relatives, who died under different circumstances and had nobody to perform their last rituals, these peoples were disposed only by the Chandalas. Next point, Chinese Buddhist monk Fayan, circa 5th century CE, wrote that untouchables had to sound a clapper in the streets so that people could avoid seeing them. So this Fahan, who came during the period of Chandragupta II, and he came in the 5th century CE during the Gupta period. So he gives a description in his book that these untouchables or the Chandalas, whenever they used to move in the streets which were crowded, they used to have a clapper and they used to keep clapping that, so that people come to know that an untouchable is coming and they would not touch him or see him. Next point. Another Chinese pilgrim, Zhuan Hang, circa 7th century CE, not written here, you can add, observed that executioners and scavengers were forced to live outside the cities. Another Chinese pilgrim, Zhuan Hang, who came after 100 years after Fahan, and he came during the time of Harshvardhana. So he gives details about these Chandalas, that they were forced to live outside the village, on the outskirts of the village, not inside the village. Next point. Chandalas accepted the life of degradation prescribed in the Shastras. Continue. But occasionally there are hints of different social realities. So according to the Dharam Shastras and the Dharam Sutras, we get details that the Chandalas accepted this and they followed these Shastras according to the rules. But when we read in Pali, Prakrit and Buddhist texts, we get details that there was a conflict between the four Varnas and the Chandalas.